This is Jill Baxter with Born to Be a Sports Agent podcast, and I am very, very excited and feel like this is a great opportunity for all of you to hear the truth about the NFL. I am Demaurice Smith is going to join me today, and he was the executive director for the NFL Players Association for 14 years. I have been a certified contract advisor since 1987. So he was the leader for many, many years. And after he was done being the executive director, he wrote this book, Turf Wars. And I'm going to tell you, when I started listening to it on Audible, I was blown away at how honest he was about the owners and about the NFL and how they operate. And I will tell you that anybody who's interested in sports needs to read this book. Actually, everybody should read this book. It's just so fascinating and so truthful. And I'm just so excited for Dee to share more information about the book and about his experience being the head of the NFL Players Union. Okay, so I'm just so with me today, and we're going to talk about his book, Turf Wars. So, Dee, when I was reading the book, I was amazed that you said that you really you really weren't that into football.
Yeah. Yeah. I made a decision early on. I mean, the problem, at least, well, not the problem. I think that the job of the executive director of the National Football League Players Association is literally one of the most important jobs in sport because you are representing the players and their families. And you have to appreciate that the decision you're making, for the most part, are affecting the future players who are coming into the game. And when issues of healthcare and pensions and 401ks are brought up in the context of a group of people where their injury rate is 100%
Oh, yeah.
and their careers are so short,
Yes.
I think that if you want to do the job the right way, you have to contemplate that the game can be cruel and unfair to the players. And if you are a fan and you believe that part of your job is facilitating this game and allowing these owners to continue to use people as their profit center, I think if that's your starting point, I think sort of philosophically, you're not in a good position to absolutely be a zero sum advocate for the players.
So do you think it was better that you weren't that really liking the game of football? Or did you?
Oh yeah, I mean, let's get it clear. I mean, I grew up in DC, so when I came out of the womb, they kind of slap you and put a burgundy and gold helmet on you. I was a huge, Washington, Redskin Commander fan
Okay,
from
you were.
jump.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've got a picture here that I can show you in a second. Oh yeah, my dad had season tickets. I went to every game up
Okay.
until probably until I went to college. So I was a huge football fan until um, I would say until sort of the middle of 2009 after I got elected.
Okay.
And then I just became sort of focused that um, the only way to do this job in the right way was to love the players far more than you love the game.
Well,
Because
that's
I think that if you love the game, you start making, I was worried I would start making, and by the way, not to throw other people under the bus, but I see other, um, you can tell the difference when you go to a union meeting. And I sat on the executive committee of the AFL-CIO and for years, and it was literally one of the best educations I've ever had.
Okay.
And these are hardcore union people. I mean, I'm there with Rich Trumka, who, led the coal miners,
Mm-hmm.
and folks like that. I mean, these are not people to be trifled with.
Right.
And all of a sudden, we're in the lockout, and some of them are like, "Hey, man, D, when is football coming back?" I'm like, well, we're in a lockout right now, just like if your members were in a lockout right now. And I'm really, really not focused on bringing football back. I'm focused on whether or not I'm going to allow, or whether our guys are going to allow the owners to take our pensions away. So how
Yeah.
about this? There's not going to be football if they want to take our pensions away. And they look at you, and then it does level set, immediately. But I think that people love this game, and football, for good and for bad, has become the cultural um, center of America, that it becomes very easy to avoid hard questions.
Interesting. So in your book, you call all the owners out. And I'm reading the book and I'm like, D, you're so honest. You're not afraid of these guys. So
Some Doesn't somebody have to write this book? I mean, you know exactly who these people are.
yeah,
You probably Well, you clearly know the football ecosystem much better than I ever will, given how you grew up, where you grew up, the business that your father was in, and the business that you're in,
and my husband's in it. I mean, I'm
and in it,
yeah,
right? And so, I mean, look, there's, um, I talk about my interaction with the owners, and I also frame them against people who are exactly like them, right? And so, look, the Vanderbilts, the Morgans, all of those people who were rightly called robber barons in the early 1900s, that's who these people are.
yeah.
Except they are, except to some extent, they are less industrious than the Carnegies and the Mellons and the Vanderbilts. So, you have one way of looking at what we would consider these business titans. And I think the mistake that a lot of people have fallen into in America, far more now, of this generation than earlier generations, is that if we perceive someone as being successful in business, for whatever reason, we are unwilling, um, to either A, hold those people accountable, or B, to appreciate that sometimes these people are only wealthy because they've managed to take advantage of other people. And I'm not I'm not a critiquing capitalism, as much as I think that if we fall into this, this current, mythology about people who are rich, and that's the way we're being conditioned. Because, it was one thing, okay, I'm going to date both of us. It was one thing for us to like watch that goofy show, Lifetime, Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. Remember that
Yeah.
dumb, dumbass show where you're going to turn on the TV and watch somebody else's house, and
Yeah.
I don't even know who Robin Leach is or was, but
Yes.
I mean, I think it's kind of weird for somebody to be sitting in middle America, and you and your wife are working full-time jobs, and you're living below the poverty line, and there's this television show that's on TV that's only designed to do one thing. It's designed to make you feel better. You are not going to watch that show. You're going to watch the season of that show and be better. You might feel better, but you're
Yeah.
not going to be better. And I think what's happened almost imperceptibly is people have fallen into this, frame that I would rather feel better than be better. And if someone is cutting your pensions, if it's harder to get health care, if it's um, nearly impossible to live above the poverty line, if two adults are working full-time minimum wage jobs, then I have one piece of news for you. The billionaire class is not going to bed at night worried about your ass. I mean, that's just
I
reality.
know. No, they're not.
They're not.
But when I was reading the book and you were dealing with the owners on the new CBA,
Yeah. The 20 CBA or the 11?
the 20, the most recent one.
Yeah, 20. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you were dealing with that situation and you figured out a way through getting the insurance for the players,
Yeah, that was 2011.
that was 2011. Okay, so when you
Yeah.
figured that out and you kind of like put them in checkmate, right?
Yeah, I would say it's, it was check well, it was check, maybe not checkmate, but also remember they can just grab the board and rip it up and throw in your face. But let's just say it was a good play. It was a good play.
But I feel like that was what got you
Oh
more.
yeah. Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. They had a game strategy, for people who didn't read the book
They
oh, by
need
the
to read
way,
the book.
that
Everybody needs to read the
episode,
book.
the vignette of that story actually is in this month's Fast Company magazine. So they printed an excerpt of the book. But, so, look, I'm a trial lawyer by training, and I guess what that gave me probably more than any other particular skill is understanding game strategy and advanced game strategy. The league had a pretty simple game strategy. I mean, they'd gone to the networks, and the networks had given them $4 billion to that in money that the NFL would have been able to use if there's a lockout for the entire season. And that's important for them because if there's no football generated revenue. But at the same time, coming out of the 2008 financial meltdown, these owners still had to service the debt on their stadiums. And a lot of that debt was personally secured by the owners themselves.
Oh, gotcha.
So, I mean, I know that because, you can hire the right people and the right people will do the financial analysis for us. And we did. So on one hand, you've got a group of owners who, have substantial amount of personal wealth. At the same time, they have to service debt on these stadiums. And after 2008, you couldn't get a loan for $4 million, let alone $4 billion. So the only thing that really saved us was honestly, Jill, the owners told everyone they had a $4 billion war chest. Had they not told everybody, I mean, they put it in print. John Mara was talking about it, Clark Hunt was talking about it, Jones was talking about it in the ramp up to 2011. I think they just made that fact so popular because they thought that it was going to terrify the players into not holding out. And I mean, it terrified me. It did. But if they have $4 billion and they are actually making it known to everybody, I knew they weren't bluffing. So the idea was whether or not we could get lockout insurance that in the event of the same lockout, that our players would get paid
Right.
for the length of the lockout. And, I mean, it's not designed to meet the same amount of money that they have, but as because you were around for the earlier failed strikes,
Yes, I was.
what the owners were counting on is players in a lockout scenario begging their union to do the deal by week 3 or week 4 of a missed paycheck.
Right.
So the game strategy is Okay, they're expecting the players to capitulate somewhere between week 4 and week 7. If I can get an amount of money that pays our players all the way through week 16, that changes that changes everything. And, we were also able to, talk about a Hail Mary. We were able to convince a federal court judge that that $4 billion war chest from the networks was gained in violation of the CBA.
Oh, okay.
Well, a federal judge freezes their 4 billion. We now have whatever it is, 900 million.
That's
Now let's negotiate. Yeah.
But did the players appreciate? See, I always knew that you were fantastic,
Well, thank
that
you.
you were strong, okay? And I thought this guy is going to be really truly there to protect the players. But did they appreciate the players what you did? Did you
Um, I
they
think I think that year, I know that they did, and I had a special group of people, Drew Brees and Kevin Mawai, Brian Dawkins, Kevin Carter,
Yeah,
Jeff
Drew's good.
Saturday, Foxworth, Mark Bruner, Keenan McCardle. I mean, that was the executive committee that I had that elected me. And so when they decided, to take some outside lawyer, as a final candidate against, two former NFLPA presidents, I felt at that point that these dudes understood that they were in for a war. Um, and I loved, working with the executive committees and the boards that I had to work with, and a lot of them, many of them, most of them were tremendous. But that group was special. Because when we came up with the idea of the lockout insurance, and it's still the most complicated thing I've ever done, as a lawyer with a group of people. You have to go to you have to go to an executive committee, and by then Brian Waters was on it and Scott Fujita was on it. And you have to go to these guys and you have to say, hey, look, we came up with this plan. We're now decertified. This premium is going to cost us, I don't know, 50, 48 million, $50 million. And it'll buy our men, $900 million of insurance. But here's the deal. If everything works well, we never use it.
Okay.
Right? And so, you know, I'm not sure that a lot of the players now um would have done that because these guys had to engage in their own game strategy about, $50 million is still a lot of money.
Yeah,
And no, we're not going to get it back because you don't get it back when you pay an insurance premium.
right, right.
I'm forecasting how this negotiation is going to go, and I think it's going to go a certain way. And if everything goes well and we keep this thing secret, which they did, I
That's
mean, only
amazing.
11, only, as you know, only 11 players knew, and then a 12th, and then, one special guy knew. And that's in the book. Don't tell anybody. It's a secret. But, we told one player because we needed him to kind of grease the skids. But that was a tremendous amount of leadership from those guys. And so do I think that they understood it and appreciated it? I think they did.
Oh, that's good. Now, what about the 2020 situation?
That was a hard deal. And I think that looking back on it, um, I'm crunching on a halls because I have a cold for some reason. So sorry for the people listening at home.
Okay.
And too. It's not like I'm eating a burger or anything, but early deals present their own problems, right? Because you're always trying to convince people or explain to people that we don't have a lot of leverage when a CBA ends. I mean, you've been there.
Yeah,
And the agents understand that far better, I think, than the players. And it's not the players' fault. It's just that, these guys are 25, 26, and they've never had another job. And to a certain extent, they've never seen the league turn their guns on them. That's what's different, right? I mean,
Right.
you and I, when we're negotiating with people at the teams, it's not all bunting and fireworks and, the cheerleaders and yeah, not so much,
No,
right? It's
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 just numbers.
hand-to-hand combat,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And that's for an individual player's contract,
Yeah.
right? Take that, multiply it times 1,800, and then multiply it times 50% of the projected revenue. And the way I've explained it to players, we're going to go in and we're going to negotiate with the owners over why we deserve $150 billion. That's what the deal is. And I don't care who you are or where you came from. If you think that that conversation is going to be one of those conversations that starts off with, well, we're the number one sport and everybody loves NFL players and everybody watches our game and therefore we're entitled to the 150 billion. Man, you have no idea the level of disrespect that you're going to get from the other side. I mean, they're going to laugh at you in your face and then they're going to tell you to get the fuck out of the door. Because the way that those negotiations work is, okay, I get it. You want 50% of the projected revenue over the next 5 or 10 years. Make us give it to you. You'll be gone,
But you
right?
got it, but you got it done.
And here's why, because the league wanted a 17th game.
Right.
And the one thing that you know that you can always leverage in a long-term contract, and the reason why I liked long-term deals is the league can project the value of a long-term deal as they generate mostly media and network TV contracts, right? And I'm not going to bore everybody at home because you just blow your brains out over the regression analysis, over the forecast analysis, I would say is, but they can they can sit down and we can sit down if you hire the right people and you can measure out just how much money you are likely to wring out of the media deals between a 5-year contract and a 10-year contract.
Got
I
it.
mean, it is literally a multiple, right?
Right.
And so what you're leveraging for an early deal is instead of dealing with all of the league's guns being pointed at the players at expiration, i.e., how much money do we now need to take away from you because you've made us go through this war of, this lack of labor peace. All the guns are turned at the players. If you're willing to do an early deal, what you're doing is you are facilitating all of the league's guns turning on the networks. So I looked at it simply as how much do they want labor peace and how much are they willing to pay for a 17th game? And so, the big win in 2011, I mean, yes, we kept our pensions. No, we didn't give back 20% of our salary. And most importantly, no, we didn't play 2 extra games for free. The big wins in 2011 were, as as an agent, the big wins was the spin, making the team spend at least 95% of the
Yeah.
salary cap.
Okay. Yeah.
Because fans didn't realize, and even players didn't realize, there were some teams spending 70% of the cap.
Right. They weren't spending all of it.
And, I remember coming in from the outside, and, again, it's one of those moments where you actually think you're the dumb guy, right? I'm sitting in these media gaggles where you're surrounded by these, people who are writing for the papers and, sports reporters, and they're like, hey, man, D, I mean, so what do you think, where do you think the cap's going to go? Where do you think the cap's going to be? And I'm kind of like, well, I might be the dumb guy, but you guys are all asking about the salary cap. How come we don't have a salary floor?
Right. Like you have to spend it all. Yeah.
And all these, I'll remember the day that I was sitting in New York with, I don't know, 30 or 40 reporters, and they were like, well, the floor is not that important because everybody wants to win. I mean, everybody's going to spend the salary cap, D. And I said, yeah, I mean, I thought you would say that, which is why I did the analysis of the past 5 years. And you see Kansas City, 75%, or Buffalo, 78%, and
Cle-
so, okay.
I'm sure Cleveland was low too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, coming out with the spins, I'm like, look, yes, we gave back percentage points in 2011, but whatever we gave back in percentage points was more than made up in the fact that you had to spend the money.
Right.
Right? And so, there was a league-wide spend, there's a salary cap spend per team, but the big win is that up until 2011, the league had the unfettered discretion of adding as many games to the schedule as they wanted. And so I kind of remember, at one point, when I know that the league went from 12 games to 14,
Mhm.
I probably wasn't watching, but, and then they went from 14 to 16 games. The players never got more money. The players never got an increased share of revenue. So it was literally like the man coming in, as you're done flipping pizzas at the sub shop on Friday, and he says, hey, man, I got a great idea. Everybody's going to work Saturday and Sunday. And, you're like, hey, okay, but am I going to get overtime? No. But here's what's going to be good, right? We're all going to make more money. And so at the end of the year, I can afford to pay you more money. Isn't that great? There's not a worker in America who wouldn't go, no, that's not great at all. I want overtime
Yeah.
because I'm now working more. So, in 2011, we wrestled back the control, and obviously put in a lot of safety provisions. But we wrestled back control of the control for our own work. So, to put the frame together in 2011, they had the unilateral right to add as many games as possible. In 2020, the players agreed to the 17th game. The league paid 1.6 to 1.8 billion dollars for that game
Okay.
over a 10-year period, and it was a game they had for free in 2010. So, part of this job sometimes is sitting back and letting the people, oh, D lost, the players lost in 2011. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Fine. You don't take a job like this for Insta likes. Um,
Yeah.
but what the deal in 2011 did was allowed us to set up a 2020 deal that massively increased the amount of money coming to the player side because we ended up with more than a point and a half of revenue.
Mm.
It increased the minimum salary players' salaries by $200,000 overnight.
Which was huge.
It's huge. You know,
Especially people don't realize that most players don't have a ton of leverage. Most players are at the bottom of the roster. Most
yep,
are getting cut, scared to death,
yep,
don't know where they're going to get their next paycheck, probably didn't save as much as they should.
a
That's
hundred percent.
the majority of the guys. There's a
Yep,
few guys that have leverage, which we could talk about the guaranteed contracts, and I don't know how much
yep.
time you have. We can either talk
You know
about
what we might do is, do you want to do two of these?
Yes, I would love to because one of the things I do want to talk about is that how much this job emotionally really wreaked havoc on you and your,
Yep.
I'm assuming your family. Because I'll be honest with you, Dee, when I was reading the book, I actually started to cry because I felt like I remember in that meeting, I think it was 2019, and they were so mean to Heather at the friggin' agent meeting. And I was like,
I remember.
I wanted to stand up and say, you friggin' jerks. Do you know what I mean? And it's like,
Oh yeah. Well,
I,
I had a couple of those agent meetings too. That one
that
when
was a horrible agent meeting.
it was a horrible agent meeting. I remember that when they were mean to Heather. She went on before me, and I run a little hot anyway. And yeah, yeah, yeah. And they were so mean to her. And then at the end, it was the executive director's report. And if you remember, that was the one where I stood at the podium, put on a lava mic, came off the little dais thing and said, let's go. And and look, I get it to a certain extent, but also um the agents are agents of the union.
They
You
don't
have
see it that way, though. So many of them don't see it that way,
I
Dee.
know. And I felt
No.
at that meeting and everybody else to make sure that everybody understand, hey, look, we've got an opportunity for an early deal here in 2019. We've talked to our players about the top 10 things that are important to them. We're going to go fight for those things. But this level of animosity and somehow that, you know, these people feel like these people feel like that they are entitled to something more than just doing wages, hours, and working conditions for our men. Um, Pump
Yeah.
the brakes, right? And I think that was the year that I finally had enough, and I invited your good friend and mine, Peter Schaefer, to uh, to the union meeting that year, and they nearly tore him limb from limb. Nearly tore him in half.
Oh,
Because I don't know if you remember, well, actually, there was a story because somebody wrote about it. I don't know how the reporter got there. It's so weird. And well, sometimes I can be that guy. Um, yeah, I think the first thing out of Peter Schaefer's mouth was and he said this to the players. Let's be clear. I'm pretty sure that most players can't spell lockout.
oh, that is.
It didn't go well.
I'm sure.
Yeah, and but I remember that meeting very well because what started it was, and it's every year, right?
Yeah.
Some guy who stands up and says, "I heard a rumor from a player who talked to another player that you guys are going to try to lower the rate, from 3%." And I'm like, first of all, no. And second of all, no. And it takes on this life of its own, and everything spins out of control and clowns come out of cars and people start running around with scissors. And, you get to a point where it's like, hey, look,
It's a
I
Jericho
will,
Jericho.
well, and I will reason with anyone and I'll have a normal conversation with anyone. But I also know this. I also know that the players elected me to be the executive director.
Right.
And I know that the agents have no more power than the power that is delegated from the union to the players. We're the exclusive bargaining authority for the players. And if the players decided one day, no more agents, fine, whatever. But
Yeah, well, it's not. I always thought maybe, I mean, the union should have, in many cases,
it crossed my mind.
and the reason why I say that is, see, every time I had something happen, I called the union first because
Yep.
they had all the different experiences and I only had the one I was dealing with. So I always knew they had more information and
Yep.
I always wanted to talk to the union attorneys because that was the right thing to do.
100%. And I'm stunned that so few do.
Well,
Still stunned.
I called
Well,
a
yeah,
lot.
well, you know what? Let's do this.
Okay.
So how about look, we could talk all day, and I like talking to you because I'm actually talking to somebody who understands the ecosystem.
I feel like you're my brother, but you know, like a
I
past
am.
life or something. I don't know.
I am. Look, this is a tough, tough business. And again, you've been in it longer than me, and you appreciate its complexity. You appreciate the nuance of it. You certainly understand the NFL, the difference between the NFL as presented to
Oh,
the fans versus what it really is.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you and I both work for players who just want to play.
Yes.
And I love them and I want to protect them because of that.
But sometimes
because,
they don't want to be protected. That's it.
oh,
It's a whole nother
oh, I mean, look, and that's the problem, right? Because
I know.
people don't understand that 50% of this job, maybe even 60% of this job, is the war against the owners and the teams. 40% of this job is protecting the players sometimes from themselves
Yeah.
and trying to do things in their own best interest.
And all the people around him.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. Yeah.
Yeah, we could talk about all that. But anyways.
I've got to run to the airport.
Okay, I've got to go to the airport too. So,
Oh,
oh yeah, that's my next thing.
but
Thanks for tuning into this powerful conversation with Demaurice Smith about the ongoing battles between the NFL and the players and his book, Turf Wars. We've only scratched the surface, however, and there's more to unpack. So to be sure and join us in part 2 of this discussion. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe, share this episode with your colleagues and friends, and leave a review to help more people find the show. If you'd like to connect with me directly or learn more about my work with coaches and athletes, you can find me at jillmcbridebaxter.com. Until next time, keep learning, keep leading, and we'll see you in part 2.